exactly what to expect when I got on a plane and went to Jackson, Mississippi to have a conversation with Joel Bomgar. And I have to tell you, he about blew me out of the room. This man's energy and intellect is something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. It's amazing what he's achieved in his life, but not only has he had personal achievement, his ability to communicate and motivate you and give you wisdom that you can use in your own life is pretty spectacular. Enjoy this interview with Joel Bomgar. Joel, thanks so much for your time today. Looking forward to this conversation. Tell us about your background.
So I grew up here in Mississippi. I was homeschooled all the way through, joined the Mississippi Air National Guard. So I served in the military for 6 years, 1 year full-time, came back, attended Belhaven University here in Jackson. And my wife and I met as freshmen, got married as juniors, and so then graduated in 2003, and I started my business, Bomgar Corporation, about a month after I graduated, and built that company for 11 years.
Wow. So how did you have the courage or inclination to start a business on your own 1 month after you graduated?
So I think a lot of it's the beauty of ignorance. You have no idea how hard it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like most things I've done in my life, I've looked back on them and said, that was incredible, but I don't want to do it again, and I don't know that I would have done it had I known how hard it was going to be at the beginning. Right. So I think it was just this raw entrepreneurial spirit that there's a problem in the world, that's not okay. I'm going to go solve that problem, and it's going to require building a business to solve that problem. It's going to be a big deal.
So what did Bomgar do? What was the problem you were solving?
Yeah, so initially, right out of college, I made money fixing people's computer problems. So I drove this 1979 Buick LeSabre, which was a year older than I was. I was born in 1980. So I was driving this $500 car around fixing people's computer problems. And I would get on their computers and fix it. And the problem I had was that drive time was not billable. And of course, I didn't want to be driving a 1979 Buick LeSabre around. And so I had this idea, which was, what if I could log into people's computer systems over the internet, and then I could see their screen, I could type on their keyboard, I could do everything remotely that I could do if I was physically there. Back in 2003, that was very new technology. Now it's almost universal. Right. But back then it was very new. And so I spent my senior year developing this little piece of software for me to use. I never actually intended to build a business around it, but I was building a tool for me, and it took about 6 months of my senior year, and I thought, that was way too much work for me to be the only person that gets to benefit from this tool. Right. I wonder if there's a market for it. So I put up a very simple one-page website. It literally had nothing on it, no links. It was just a one-page brochure online that said, for $500, I'll share this technology I built with you, and then you can fix computer problems over the internet like me. And I started advertising on Google, the little Google-sponsored AdWords, which back then cost about 10 cents per click. Depending on the term, now they're a lot more expensive. Right. But every time somebody clicked on my link, they'd go to my website, and I think I set a limit of like $20 a day, because my wife and I had just got married, and so money was tight. And so day 4, I put my ads live on a Monday. On a Thursday, the very first person called me and said, I want this technology, here's $500, you prove to me it works. I showed him it worked and all that. And the business was born right there. Wow. And over the next 2.5 months, I made $25,000, which was enough to hire 2 full-time employees. By the end of the full year, we had more than more than $100,000 in revenue. And it just kept building and building and building. And millions of dollars started flowing in, and we kept building and building and building. And now Bomgar Corporation, 15 years later, is more than $100 million in annual revenue and incredibly profitable, and the #1 provider worldwide of technical support software for large businesses.
Did you have business training in school? Did you take business courses? Or how did you figure out how to start and grow a company?
Sure. So I was a business major, but really they don't teach you most of what you need to know to start a business, because a business degree anticipates that you'll start on some management track with some large company. Right. They don't anticipate you'll graduate and start a business the next day. So I had some business background, but a lot of it was reading and studying. And I met with every entrepreneurial person I could find, bought them lunch. We talked for an hour and a half. I'd learn what I could. I also found there's a book, The Art of the Start 2.0 by Guy Kawasaki that I thought was incredibly helpful in the start of Bomgar Corporation. But a lot of it was just, we were learning, and it was reading books, studying, searching on the internet and talking to wise, smart people and figuring it out as we went.
And that's an interesting point of view, is saying that the resources are available outside of academia to be able to get this. So how much of your time did you then, and how much now do you spend reading, researching, studying, these ways?
So a lot. I am a big reader, but mostly in the form of audiobooks. So I've got, I bought 300 some books on audible.com and not read all of them, but a large percentage. So I love audible.com. I love podcasts, and for any sort of written content, I use an app called Voice Dream, which transforms the text into computerized spoken word. So I have a wife and 4 kids, so there's not a lot of time to sit down and physically read books and flip pages, but I have lots of audio content time. So I probably listen 45 minutes to an hour a day on something that has to do with one of my passions and interests. And you can just learn an incredible amount of stuff when you spend every kind of waking hour being a kind of a continual, constant learner.
Well, this is interesting. So you seem to learn, there's different people who say visual learner, audio learner, et cetera. You're an audio learner, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And how did you figure that out? Because if you were to try to read all these books, it probably wouldn't have been as efficient for you.
Yeah, so first of all, I started reading, but there's just not enough hours in the day. And so I quickly learned that I could digest information faster and more efficiently in audio content, and that it allowed me to assimilate information much faster and more efficiently. And I also there's just not enough hours in the day to talk to people. And so if some of the smartest people in the world have put 8, 10, 12 hours of their best thoughts in a physical book for you, or on audible.com, why would you go to lunch with them if you can't first learn 12 hours of their best content and then ask for them to go to lunch to fill in the cracks? So the world is full of this vast amount of information that people tend to ignore and prefer to just make mistakes. And my view was, why would I make mistakes that I can avoid if I can learn and study and have a much higher probability of success with each decision I make?
Are these basically virtual mentors in a sense that even people that you've never met, but they, like you said, they've been able to put their thoughts and ideas in assimilated form so that you can digest them? Because there's many people who say, hey, I've been in one career track for a long time. I really have this passion. I want to do this other thing. I don't know exactly how to get started, what have you. And they don't have a role model maybe in their life, but they can go out and find one.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And throughout my life, I've had different interests and different passions, and each one starts with, and immediately I jump on Audible, see if there's any books on the topic. I jump on the podcast or the Overcast app and see if there's any podcasts on the issue. Then I jump online. I start filling VoiceStream with various articles online. Wikipedia is tons of good information. And so each new thing I've done in life have started by trying to front load the intellectual investment. And people tend not to do that. They tend to kind of rush into things, and then they make a lot of mistakes. And to me, if I can front load that intellectual investment, the probability of being accurate is a lot higher. And I've encountered just some incredible people. For example, Al Ries, last name R-I-E-S, Al Ries, has written just incredible books on marketing and focus and business. And after I had read almost every book he had, I actually called him up one day, and he offered to come in and do consulting for Bomgar Corporation. It was some of the most helpful consulting we ever had.
Wow.
But I found him because he had been a virtual mentor to me through his books, and then I couldn't believe that we had the opportunity to actually hire him to help us apply his principles to our unique situation.
Wow. And were there milestones that you can cite along the way, saying, okay, so there's the startup, and that was I think one milestone you said, hey, we made $25,000 in some period of time, we were able to hire some people. What other milestones were there along the way?
Sure. So one of the big ones was raising outside capital. We raised, after the first full year in operation, we had about $1 million in revenue, and we decided we wanted to grow faster than even that revenue would allow. So we raised $1 million in outside capital from local investors. Initially, we talked to venture capitalists and angel investors, and ultimately found 2 local investors that were willing to put up $1 million. And then over the course of 4 years, they put a total of $20 million into the company.
Wow.
In exchange for stock. So they became significant shareholders in the company, and that gave us an extra $20 million to really build the company in an incredible way. So that was a big pivot point. Also, Al Reese, who I mentioned earlier, he came in and did consulting, and one of the best books that's ever been written on the topic is a book he wrote called Focus. And that was really where we realized that we as a business, even though we had only been in business 18 months, were trying to do too much.
Right.
And that to be successful, we needed to do something that we could be the best in the world at, that we were deeply passionate about, and that drove our economic engine, which goes back to principles in the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, which is another just incredible book. So with that, we realized that a lot of the ways we had started to diversify made no sense for the stage of the company we were at.
Right.
Not that they wouldn't make sense ever, but you can't have more products than you have employees. So we decided to really laser focus on computer technical support software for large businesses, deployed in a unique way, licensed in a unique way, and that's ultimately what enabled us to become number one in the world in that industry.